Well, okay, it's the 21st of November 2024, and I try to be reasonably brief with this. I had a trip on the XPT, and there's one there on the movie. It's one of my own movies, by the way, so that I don't breach the copyright. From Maitland. I deliberately booked on the Thursday night so that I wouldn't have a problem if I'd booked on Friday. I would have arrived at casino early in the morning and been thrown off and put on a bus to Brisbane because there was going to be track work in Queensland. I thought, I'll be smart, I'll go on the train all the way to Brisbane. No such luck. I was awoken by announcements on station stopping times and which cars would be open, which doors would be open. Went back to sleep. Then at 11:30 at night, a big argument ensued in the passageway of that car A, the sleeping car. There was a young lady with some other lady in the compartment that had one leg, as she said about 3 times to the attendant, and said, we spent a lot of money. We booked all the way to Brisbane, and now you're telling us that we're going to get off the train early hours in the morning and go on the bus, and so on. And I thought, oh no. So I went back to sleep, but at 3:15, I looked at my watch, it was 3:13 a.m. to be precise. We arrived in casino. Put off the train and onto a bus for 3 hours to go to Brisbane. The train was running about 1 hour late. Now, I discussed this with Trainlink, and I sent them an email just today, actually, about this, that I'm saying that it should be 2 hours. If a train runs 2 hours late, well, then you could cancel it, but not 1 hour, because there's an hour turnaround, and it'd take about half an hour for the train to be serviced and sent back. So they wouldn't be any more than half an hour late getting back into Sydney. Now, my suggestion is very plain and straightforward, and that is to run the daylight XPT from Sydney to Casino, extend it through to Brisbane, where it would arrive at 9:15 p.m. and leave at 10:15 p.m, reaching Sydney at 12:15 p.m. the next day. It works perfectly. It avoids the peak hour rail services in Sydney and Brisbane at both ends. There'd be no problems with that. In other words, when it arrives in Brisbane, it's already 9:15 at night, and when it arrives back in Sydney, it's 12:15 in the daytime, so there'd be no interference with the train traffic at that time. I suggested that many years ago, maybe 5 or more years ago, and they did nothing about it. Now, I also pointed out that I have a group on Facebook for World Train and Air and Bus Travel, and it's got 7,500 members, and I'm hoping that they would consider that, and they would consider that they're the only railway system in the world that throws their sleeping car passengers out of their beds at early hours of the morning and puts them on a bus for the remainder of the journey. Now, if you're going from Sydney to Melbourne and vice versa, if a train is running late, it just runs late, and it turns around and it goes back to where it's come from. Not so in Brisbane. They talk about freight train interference and that they want the track to be clear, and that Queensland Rail runs, it's a dual gauge from Brisbane down to Salisbury, and they run Gold Coast trains on that dual gauge, which is 3'6" and 4'8.5". Now, that's just ridiculous, worrying about an XPT coming through at whatever time is chosen. I'm going to suggest that 7:15 a.m. at both ends for when the new CAF trains are introduced. So if it's going to be an all-daylight service, I'd be quite happy with that. But in the meantime, if the XPT goes up by day all the way to Brisbane and comes back overnight and gets in at lunchtime the following day, that will do as a stopgap measure for the longer term. Let's say we're talking about the CAF trains. Let's deal with that as we get closer to it. So anyway, I have mentioned all that to Trainlink. I'm now waiting for some eventual reply to my email. And they usually give the excuses, and the freight is not, you see, it's not overloaded at all. We only carry, if we carry 3% of the traffic, maybe 5% of the traffic, that's all we carry. Unlike across to Perth, where they get 80% is on rail. Sydney, Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne is very, very low amounts of freight being carried. So anyway, I would welcome some civil and polite comments and discussion on the subject, and I'd like some further assistance, in a sense, of people suggesting that, as I have, that the daylight XPT go all the way to Brisbane. This would suit the train crews very, very well. They've already said so. There's no problem in operational terms for that. Okay, so I'll just say thank you for viewing, and it'd be nice to hear from anybody in a civil and polite manner. So bye bye for now.